Hey guys, Ol Skipflack here. I just wanted to let you guys know that there is still time to enter our 1,000 download milestone giveaway that's running over on our Facebook page. We are giving away a Cthulhu dice tray along with a tropical themed dice bag and some sick dice. I'll leave a link in the description for you guys to go enter. Good luck, and please enjoy this episode of the Crithalla Podcast. Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Crithalla Podcast. I am your host, Ol Skipflack, and I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts here. We'll start with Sodop Stavi. Stavi, what's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing good, man.
Got
a bit of a rash.
What?
Yeah. Like blisters
Where?
on my hands, man.
What's
On
going
my
on with your
hand.
hands?
What have you been doing?
Dude, the amount of dice I've been rolling the last couple of days, you know?
Oh.
Yeah. It's rough. It's rough. I got
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be a different kind of podcast for a second. But...
what? What are you
Is it
talking
like
about?
Is it like that issue that the kids got back in the early 2000s where, you know, you'd play Mario Party, so you'd spin the analog stick really hard in your palms and you'd get like that nasty burn in the middle of your palm?
Dude, yeah, like the N64 analog stick.
Yeah.
Probably. Oh yeah, dude, it's exactly like that. I have a hole through my hand like a dice stigmata. It's
That's terrible.
yeah, it's like
a dice mata, nice.
a dice mata. It's like in the
Dice mata.
shape of like a D10. It's awful. It's god awful. But other than that, I'm doing good.
Well, that's good. While
Yeah.
you nurse your hands back to health, we'll introduce our other co-host here, Mike, Cosmic Key. What's going on, brother? How are you? Hopefully you don't have a rash.
No, I don't have a rash. I have this sort of discoloration. No, I'm fine. I'm doing good.
gray. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, that's just being old. Yeah, my hair seems to be turning gray for some reason.
That's strange. That's very strange.
Polymorph.
Yeah, it's super strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the worst kind, yeah.
You're getting the grayscale, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's hitting you hard.
Where's
bro.
my... Who's tweaking my dial? Who's like...
Great start, guys.
Yeah, we're doing great.
Yeah, age and rashes. We're good to go.
And what about yourself, Dan? How are you doing?
Oh.
Yeah, where do you hurt?
Yeah, what ails you?
Shit.
Oh, it's memory. It's the
Yeah.
memory.
It's the memory. Yeah. Okay.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait, where am I? Wait, what's going on?
Okay.
What are we
well,
doing?
All right, come over here. Have a
Is this
seat.
therapy? Am I in my therapy session again?
I'll take over.
Okay.
Greetings, everyone, to Tinctures and Tabletop.
Wait.
And today we're going to be helping everyone with their ailments.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, here, drink this, okay? Just drink this.
Ooh, not bad.
Hopefully, after you drink that, you'll feel inspired.
Oh, that's
Oh.
right. Feeling inspired, right? I think that's what we're going to be talking about today, right?
His memory came
Oh,
back.
he's getting his memory
Yeah, that's
back.
right. Hey, oh shit, that's right. It's the Crithalla Podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for anyone who is completely and utterly confused, let me break it down for you real quick. Welcome back to the Crithalla Podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. We run a show on here called DM's Discuss, where every episode we discuss a specific Dungeon Master question or topic. And today, we are getting inspired, my friends. We are going to be talking about the inspirations that we take and put into our sessions and our campaigns and everything that we ever do in our games.
Inspirations. I'm conjuring inspiration here with my magic ball.
Look.
All right. Inspiration's usually a good thing. I don't know what these witches are casting right now.
Yeah, usually it's pretty good. I don't know what's going on here.
It's usually good. It shouldn't be a curse, so I'm not sure what's going on.
It's not a curse. It's a ritual, and it's going to take me at least 30 minutes.
Oh my god. What are we going to do for 30 minutes while everyone's chasing us around, trying to kill us? We got to be inspired now, bro.
Right. Okay. Well, here's my portable hole.
Oh.
This is getting dirty again.
Throw that on the ground. I want hop right in. They literally can't catch us.
You're right. That is true.
I am not hopping in any portable hole made by someone who has rashes. No.
This was a PG show.
Dude, I didn't have rashes when I made the hole.
Oh, so the hole gave you your hand rashes? That's worse.
Okay.
And this is why attunement doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
So
okay, bringing it back.
Yeah.
So inspirations. Everybody is inspired by something when they create a thing, right? Like nobody just creates things in a vacuum. There is always some sort of subconscious or even conscious aspect of media or art or whatever that they see and they like and they try to bring into whatever it is that they're creating. You see that in you see it in carpentry when people do like artisan work on woodwork. You see it in paintings. You see it in video games, in music, and of course in tabletop gaming. And as a dungeon master, you should always be drawing inspiration from something to make your games not only familiar to your players and to yourself, but unique and fun to dabble in worlds that you otherwise would not be able to explore.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. Before we do that, we have a YouTube page for the Crithalla Podcast, and every episode of the video version, we always have a little setting for all of us to enjoy. And today we are in the Inspiration Grove.
Ooh.
Yes, there's a lot of sparkles going around. I think there's a fountain in the back or something.
Yeah, my druid buddy, he lets me sleep on his couch sometimes. It's
it's a little bumpy. He's got a lot of acorns in it, but hey, what are you gonna do?
You sleep on the acorn.
Bed's a bed.
A bed's a bed. Tree roots. You do what you can.
You do what you do. Yeah, and it's a very nice, calm place for us to just sit and really just soak in our inspiration and come up with some amazing sessions. Baby.
Indeed. It is very zen here. I feel very, very, very nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
So feeling all peaceful and everything, let's get into it. Mike, do you want to start us off today? What's something that inspires you when you're creating your sessions or campaigns?
First of all, I thought it would be hilarious if you're like, Mike, do you want to start off? I'm like, no. Like, okay.
Absolutely not. All right, well.
No.
Who the hell are you?
Where do you get off?
On the tree over there, sorry.
Oh my god.
Anyway, Mike, go ahead.
Okay. What usually I know what inspires my compatriots here, so that's going to be covered. What inspires me specifically is I really try to ingest any sort of pseudo science, like cryptids, aliens, ancient civilizations that, people don't really know existed or not, Atlantis, anything that's odd or beyond the pale and beyond the norm of what's accepted and established. I'm just a sucker for all of that.
Yeah.
And it just gives me a plethora of ideas for monsters or creatures, or, oh, it'd be cool if this did happen this way and this was this. And I've literally made entire settings based on like ley lines and the Earth's grid or the Akashic Library, or just these strange esoteric like things that are on anything that anyone looks like they're probably crazy when they're telling you. I will watch it and I will absorb it and I will convert it into some kind of story. And I don't know. It's just a pastime of mine. It's a hobby. It's not for everybody. Some people can't stand, ancient alien stuff or cryptids and things. They're just like, nah, it doesn't exist. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like thinking what if these things did exist and then going from there. So
Well, it's something outer worldly, you know? So when you think of something outer worldly, your imagination just immediately runs wild. So thinking of aliens or Cthulhu monsters that just it literally you can't comprehend that being real. You have to imagine that. So that just completely opens the gates for creativity of like what's out there. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like weird fantasy and weird science stuff, it has always been like really, really cool. Like if you go and you watch like Mystery Science Theater, where they
Oh, yeah.
you know, they watch all these like really obscure black and white, like not even C but like D films,
Yeah.
you know, that are just so weird and fantastical. There is some tabletop games, in fact, that actually blend sort of like the medieval fantasy with sci-fi fantasy, like weird sci-fi fantasy. I've seen dungeons and adventure modules that have been published where like you go into this crypt and you think it's a dungeon, but they tell you to explain the walls and explain the floors as if you're in like this weird kind of like the throat of a great beast. Yeah. And it turns out that like what you're actually walking through is sort of that bioscience fantasy of like Geiger with like Alien, how like the interior of the alien ship kind of looks like biomass. It's like biotech.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Where it has
absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean? And there's like creatures in like these vats that are just kind of floating there, but like you're explaining it to your players from a medieval fantasy's perspective,
right?
So you can't just say it's a you know, a vat. You have to say they're kind of suspended in something or another. It makes it weird because you can very easily describe what it is if you're talking amongst us in real life.
Yeah. But
to describe it to your players, that weird science fantasy stuff is also really, really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's funny. I actually did something like that in one of my campaigns. What are those big bug monsters? Ember Hulks. I had an
Ember Hulks?
Yeah. And I had 3 of them in just like that, like big test tubes and stuff. But I had to describe it in a way of, you know, at that point we were playing Dungeons and Dragons, so very medieval fantasy. So I had to explain it in a way where it's like there were these glass capsules with, you know, bubbling unknown potentially magical liquid and these grotesque beasts are floating in it. They seem to be alive, but they don't seem to be alive at the same time. Like I had to explain it in a way where like it's not straight up sci-fi, but at the same time it kind of is, you know. It harkens back to those roots.
So Mike, like what other like have you created settings that were inspired by like Atlantean or I don't know, some kind of weird otherworldly like alien type culture where it's just strange, you know?
Actually, I actually have one of my larger settings called Dinara. It in the sky, the moon is actually shattered and broken up. And in this setting, I also wanted to run like a fantasy setting that was monotheistic. So every race worships this goddess, and it's the same goddess. They just depict her differently. But she's always wearing something over her face because she's the scarred goddess because she's actually the moon, and the moon was destroyed.
Oh.
So, but my players never realize because unless they look into it, they're not going to know, you know, the stories behind the stories behind the stories.
Yeah.
But it actually is almost a sci fantasy because, yes, that's the name of the moon, but there were actually a race living on the moon that created life on the planet of Dinara. And then there was like a rebellion and things happened and no one knows who destroyed the moon. But it all became mythified and the race that lived on the moon became angels of the goddess, and the moon itself became a goddess. And now it's basically sword and sorcery, but it started as like, you know, an ancient alien sort of thing.
That's so cool. I love that.
Does like alien tech ever come down to the planet for like the players to find as like artifacts, like divine artifacts?
There are alien tech. There is that grammar was horrible. There is alien tech on the planet that are like portals to little pockets of safety, sort of like safe rooms that the aliens made, and they still have their cities there. So like you can go to where the cities are. But they would have to, they're like deep in nature and deep in like, the wilds. So they'd have to find that. And also the moon itself, pieces of the moon falls down to Earth. And if you could harvest that material, that's how magic weapons are made. Oh. And it's made from this moonstone so like everything's connected. And there is magic. It's just that magic is just like, they don't really understand what they're doing, but it's all based on something.
Right. That's so cool.
So, wow, okay. Like using grinded up like moon minerals or moon dust for like enchantment purposes or something like that.
Yeah, I call it adamant, and like because the word means like pure and strong.
Yeah.
That's why like Wolverine's stuff is adamantium. Mm-hmm. That's where they get that word from.
Yeah.
So like you could harvest the minerals from the moon as it crashes down, harvest that adamant, and make special weapons from them.
I love how you give lore to magical items. That's really cool. That's really fun.
And this setting also opened up like the multiverse in general. So like I had like a multiversal family that would go to different like incarnations of the universe to make sure there was no incursions that bled over and stuff like that. And like there was a lot of like out there stuff for this, but it's only if the players sought that out. Otherwise it would just be like, it's a this, it's a god, it's a demon, it's a this, but they were something else from outside.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of like the complex of if we nowadays were to go back into the past and give somebody from like Victorian England an iPad, or that sort of like culture shock of like, oh my God, what is this devilry, this witchcraft?
Exactly.
But you have this advanced race who's been there for God knows how long, and then this sort of cataclysmic thing happens, and whatever they created is left behind for these primitive races to find. And to them, it's magic, but it's just science fiction. It's that's really dope, actually.
And the way I wrote it, because I'm big on writing creation myths, which is, I think, something we should probably like cover in an episode, like creation myths and how they bleed over.
Definitely.
But in this, because the name of the goddess is named Krana, the scarred one, because she's the scarred goddess because she's destroyed. And so she basically, with her breath, brought life. So there were creatures, I forgot what they were called offhand, but they were the creatures of the first breath. And then they're the ones who rebelled. And then in all the catastrophe of that war, the creatures of the second breath, it took their first breath. And that's like dwarves and elves and humans. And like, so we're not even like the first incarnation of life on the planet. We just sporadically showed up randomly after the war and like trying to fill in the pieces of what like the other races left behind.
I love lore.
Yeah, that rocks. Like ancient history that you have to uncover on your own. That's so cool. I love that. You make such good stories.
The funny thing is that whole setting was made because my best friend, he loves dwarves. Like me and him both love dwarves.
Me too, bro.
And he wanted it. That's why everyone's going to get along. He loves dwarves, but he didn't like the fact that he just felt like dwarves got like the raw, I was going to say the short end of the stick, but everyone just thinks they're just short and they know about rocks. They're not magical enough for him. And so I was like, well, you want me to make a setting that focuses on dwarves? And he's like, could you? So I made this setting. And like I made like 10 species of dwarves, and I made my own like dwarves, and there's 9 dwarven thanes, and they control the land, and everyone pays tithing to them, even the elves, and that all stemmed from just him wanting a setting from dwarves. But since it's me, I added the whole like moon goddess and the ancient creatures that live on the moon. But it was all basically because you wanted a dwarf setting.
That's so great. That's my wheelhouse too, the whole dwarf setting. There's so much you could do with dwarves, like just through all different types of media throughout the years. Like you can make space dwarves, you can make high fantasy dwarves, you can make low fantasy dwarves, you can make crazy underground hell worlds of dwarves. There's so much you could do with it. And it's cool how you went that sci-fi aspect, because you don't see that much.
No. The dwarf subrace I was most proud of, they were called sigil dwarves, and they had the correlation between making schematics for weapons and golems and stuff with magic. So they basically combined the two and focused it on glyphs and wards, and they tattoo themselves with their magic. So they put like the schematics of magic on their own skin, and they're able to basically cast rituals from their tattoos.
That's so cool.
That's real dope.
Yeah.
Big fan of that. Speaking of dwarves, one of the dwarf I guess sub races that I've really been getting into recently is I think they're called ziggurat dwarves. Ziggurat, I believe, is what it's called. I could be wrong, but basically it's like ancient Persian, like Middle Eastern kind of dwarves with like the gowns and like the headdresses and like the, like the gold in the beard and everything like that, and you know, the darker skin kind of, and they build like these pyramids and temples and they live out in the sands, and like I like seeing that too.
Yeah, because it's not something you see every day.
Right, people think dwarves, they think like Scottish, short bearded, muscular dudes from the mountains.
Mountains, it's cold. Yeah.
I like the idea, speaking of like inspiration stuff, pulling real life inspiration like cultures and applying that to fantasy races, right? Because of course we always have elves that live in the woods, right? But there's also water elves that I've seen before, where their whole thing is underwater and they have gills and flippers and fins and stuff like that, but they're still considered elves with the pointy ears and all that stuff. I've seen like forest halflings, which basically look like a bunch of hairy Ewoks, but still kind of carry over a lot of the halfling tropes that you see in stuff like Lord of the Rings and pretty much everywhere, where they like to eat and they like to farm and do all that stuff. And just seeing like culture crossovers is also really cool.
That's really fun. Even like cultural, and you can even get into like elemental, like the amount of sub races of elves that have been created, that, you know, the moon elf or the fire elf or the, you know, the forest elf, or the, you know, there's so many different types of elements that you can do as well, just besides cultures. There's so much you can do.
What if you removed dwarves altogether and you just made like a race of elves that were like mountain elves?
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like all of the tropes of dwarven stuff, but still very much like high caste system.
Yeah.
You know, sort of like an autocracy kind of thing, but like in mountains, these
Snowy
grand
elves,
snow elves. Well, so the Elder Scrolls, right? The Elder Scrolls had snow elves, which ultimately wound up becoming the Falmer, because they were forced underground and they were there so long that their eyes stopped working. So they became blind because they're not on the surface of the planet anymore. Right. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of that. Big proprietor, a big proponent, component. That's the word I'm thinking of.
Proponent, I think.
Proponent?
Yeah, that's the word. I was so inspired I couldn't think.
So speaking of what inspires you, Stavi, what else inspires you? What is it? Pop culture? Is it, besides just normal culture? What else are you inspired by?
So first and foremost, I mean, look, if you're going to do anything fantasy related, anything at all, to not credit Tolkien's work is doing the entire genre a disservice. He is the grandfather, the great-great-grandfather of all fantasy as we know it.
Oh, yeah.
But his inspiration came from a lot of real-world mythos, a lot of Norse mythology, a lot of Gaulish mythology, and Irish or Celtic mythologies. Even like god characters and Germanic stuff, like pre-Viking era things, where the Romans called the people the barbars, or as we call them, the barbarians, right?
Right.
When they were polytheistic, like tribal cultures living in like the Black Forests of Germany way back in the day before lords and ladies and all of that stuff, like whatever recorded history we have, he took that and expanded upon it. Going to what Mike said, even with his creation myth, guys, if you haven't read the Silmarillion, and this is going to anybody who's listening, I understand that it is a very difficult read. There is definitely some reputation, if you will, and notoriety around reading the Silmarillion, because it for a while it is like reading the book of Genesis. It is literally like reading the creation myth of the Bible.
Absolutely.
But it's all fantasy, and it's really intriguing how like song and thought and all these other things come into play for the creation of the world. So obviously Tolkien, right? That goes without saying. We wouldn't have orcs if it weren't for Tolkien.
Yeah.
Just hands down, orcs were not a thing before Tolkien's writings. They just weren't. Goblins may have been. I know that elves definitely were around before Tolkien, because elves are a part of Norse mythology. Same thing with dwarves. They're a part of Norse mythology. Ice giants and stuff like that, also Norse mythology. Even magical weapons, which have been across all cultures, but they've primarily been honed in and focused on with Norse mythology, especially in more recent history. Because you have your Mjolnir, you have your Gungnir, Odin's spear. Mm-hmm. You have Thor's chariot being pulled by goats in space. Like that even carried over to Dexter's Lab with the Super Friends show.
Oh my god, yeah, dude.
There was like the Captain America, the Infraggable Crunk, and the Eddie Van Halen.
Wow,
dude.
You just unlocked a memory.
I think his name was Valhalla or something. Valhalla instead of Van Halen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he rode the Rainbow Road with like a chariot being pulled by goats. That's all
right.
That's all Norse stuff. But what I use, tangent over, I just wanted to throw Tolkien out there because it goes without saying that Tolkien is a massive inspiration, probably for all of us and for literally anybody who does any homebrew anything.
Oh, yeah.
Because without his work, we would not have the fantasy genre that we know now. Everything prior to him was all wives' tales and folklore. It was all, King Arthur. It was Gilgamesh. It was like these grand epic tales, Homer's Odyssey. That's what we had before Tolkien. He completely revolutionized fantasy as we know it. But anyway, my inspiration, I look to other things like Dark Souls was definitely a very large inspiration for me for one of my campaigns for my first bout into dark fantasy.
Sure.
Because Dark Souls does a really good job in world building using context clues rather than just dumping all the lore on you. You kind of have to figure it out for yourself, and that's what makes it more intriguing.
Yeah.
I don't know, more recently I started getting into a lot of Arthurian stuff. Like I really like the idea of Merlin and like look how I'm dressed right now. Do you see this robe and the hat?
It's a nice robe.
Okay.
It's a good robe, yeah.
This is literally taken from the concept of what Merlin looked like in the Arthurian tales, where he had
classic looking wizard.
The very classic looking wizard, comes from that. So folklore, other video games, Tolkien, I mean, there's a lot, to be honest. We can go deeper into it, but I want to hear what else you have to say, Dan. Where do you draw your inspiration from?
Oh, geez. Well, it was a lot. Before actually playing D&D, my favorite thing in the entire world was World of Warcraft. So the setting of World of Warcraft was always a pretty big one for me.
Hell yeah, Zug Zug.
Oh, Zug Zug, bro.
Yeah, Zug Zug, brother.
I always I always liked how when you start a character in World of Warcraft, you always start at your humble beginning home. And as you progress your character, you kind of explore different areas of your surrounding homeland. And then as you get bigger and bigger, you go from your homeland area to a different continent and progressing there. And now you're learning other people's cultures. And that's something that I really take home with my campaign, because my character started out in a central hub where they got to learn about themselves and about where they're from and about their, their central city that they have taken hearth in. And from there, they have met allies who have branched them out to the northern ends of the mountains and the southern ends in the forests and, out into the west into a more magical area in like big cities and stuff like that. So I always took inspiration like that from the humble beginnings to now you're in these big crazy areas and running raids, when you hit level, back in my day, level 70 or level 80 or whatever. But yeah, I always like that stepping stone from the very beginning where you have no armor or nothing and you learn about everybody and then you move on. That's a big thing. World of Warcraft was a huge one. Of course, just like you, Lord of the Rings, very high fantasy based things. Always been a huge fan of big magic stuff, crazy races, spell slinging. That all harkens back to Tolkien for me, 100%. Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie series. Another big thing for me is Game of Thrones.
Sure,
that was oh man. The amount of hours I sunk into watching that show and then watching breakdowns of lore on YouTube about that show. I take a lot of inspiration of very guttural and don't be afraid to kill a main character for the shock value of your players.
Right.
I love that. That's a huge one for me.
Just like as an off point, I wish more DMs would do that.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. If you're listening to this, like, it's okay to kill your characters, your players' characters.
Yeah. I'm always willing to die. If it's for the story and it's not just like, I trip and then a lightning bolt hits me for some fucking reason. Right. But if it's like the story, I'll be sad, but I'll just make another character.
Yeah. You have to have the mindset of like, oh shit, like this is real, the stakes are real, my character might die.
Yeah.
Like if I do this, like, and then you make that roll and it's not good, or the DM makes the roll and they pick their head up from the DM screen and they just give you this look.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck. Like,
I even love going the opposite way where like you made this NPC that literally everybody loves. And it's like, I'm taking it away now. Like, I haven't specifically, I may have done it once or twice. I'm not sure, but I've taken one character away from a couple of players already, and they're like, this is bullshit. Like, we need to save this man immediately, and I don't give them an option to, and it just makes them even more angry, and I'm like, yeah, I want to feed that. And as my campaign progresses, I am going to do that. I'm going to kill characters that are going to upset people, and I can't wait for that, because it invests the player so much more. Just like back in the day when I was watching Game of Thrones and one of my favorite characters would die, and it was like, oh my god, now what are they going to do? Like, this is a major character. How are they going to run this story now? Like, how are they going to continue this? Like, that kind of mindset always hit me so good. Like, yeah, you got to do stuff. You can't be afraid to do something insane.
That's also a good way to build a big bad also. Like, if you have the big bad be the one that puts the blade to that character, and your players are super invested in them and they're watching that character die and they're completely helpless. Dude. That seething, boiling, brewing, bubbling hatred for this character, it's chef's kiss.
It's perfect.
To see their anger and their want for vengeance is just so fucking good.
I didn't even realize. I just recently ran a session. They just killed their very first big bad, Danik, and it's kind of like the aftermath of that huge battle that they had to kill Danik, and it was a big war. So there was like a huge war going on and all that, and they got through the war and they killed Danik, and how I left that war was that there were still stragglers that ran away. So they're in a new area now, and there was a straggler that came into town, and what I wanted them to do was to kind of capture him and get information out of him, but my one player hates that bad so badly. She hated Danik, hated him. She literally just went right up to that little scrawny little merfolk boy and just killed him immediately. She was like, I fucking hate you. I hate everything you stand for. And I'm like, oh, dude, I made a pretty good big bad. That was that was pretty good. Okay,
that's
all right, cool.
satisfying.
Like, she's playing her character, and it's like, all right, cool. No, this is nice. Yeah. No, so
yeah.
no.
The last Spelljammer game when I was gonna kill Artie.
Oh yeah.
I thought the group was gonna like throw me out of the house. My girlfriend stood up. I thought she was rethinking our relationship. And
Dude, so funny.
That's awesome.
I was like, it's the way the story's going. I'm sorry.
That was the best part too, yeah, because we have Artie, who's our big treant that's on our ship, and he is adorable. He's just this big guy that kind of talks, and he's very happy all the time. And he's a lovely character. Mike did a great job making him, and he was about to die, and the literal anger at these players. And as a DM, I literally sat back and I was watching everybody like be so upset about this situation, and I literally looked at Mike and I'm like, you're fucking good, man. Like, you are good. I wish I could make an NPC like this, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Damn, you know how to do it, man.
I just kept like pulling on their heartstrings. Like the treant was getting ripped in half, and I was like, yeah, you see the rings in his stump, and the ring that's the thickest is the ring of this past year because you all were in his life and all this stuff, and they were like, what the fuck?
And I'm just sitting there like, man, you're good. You're real good. Ooh, you're good.
I'm like, you motherfucker, you're good.
Yeah. But yeah, no, definitely that. Game of Thrones does that for me. That
Sure.
like that constant like. But probably my last bit of inspiration would surprisingly be anime. I love the over-the-top things that come from animes. Like, I don't know, like My Hero Academia, what's another good one? I can't think of it now. Just the over-the-top crazy shit that happens that like the main hero has to overcome. And it's just like, you know, like the classic like Dragon Ball Z episode where like they're conjuring their one ability for 20 fucking minutes. You know what I mean? Like just how epic that buildup is, and then it's like the one big blast, and it's like, oh yeah. Over the top things like that I get from anime a lot. Like going back to the war, the big scene right at the end where they were actually defeating the big bad, it was on top of a castle. And it overlooked this huge war going on with this dragon getting pinned down by their allies, and they're fighting. And I actually got that from an anime. It was two characters sitting on top of a mountain while an entire battle was going on beneath them. And I remember watching that episode, and I was like, this is like the coolest thing I've actually ever seen. Like, there's literally people getting beheaded below them, and it's just the two of them just staring at each other, the good guy and the bad guy. And I'm like, I want to make something like that. That is such a cool idea. So yeah, anime is definitely another one for me, for sure.
Can I just real quick branch off of that?
Yeah.
Speaking of anime, I was going back a few months ago. Maybe it was probably actually, no, it was definitely pre-COVID.
Yeah.
I was going through and I was binging Yu Yu Hakusho.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Dude, Yu Yu Hakusho is hands down one of the greatest anime to ever come out of the 90s. I'm just
It's a great
saying.
one.
Okay.
Great one.
Look, once Yusuke starts understanding like his spirit gun, and like he starts recruiting Kuwabara and the rest of the other guys, and they're going into like the spirit tournaments and shit like that.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there and watching these episodes and being like, this is a fucking D&D campaign that they converted into an anime. Like 100%. Like
literally.
It's wild because if you watch some of these episodes, especially when they go through that one spirit tournament, right, where they're fighting, the way that they set up the camera angles for a lot of these fights as they're building up before the fight actually begins is it's isometric, so the camera is above them, kind of like if you were to look down at a table, and the ground is all tiles. Like a grid, like kind of like a, you know what I'm saying? Like a 1-inch grid, and they're all standing in their own individual grid while the bad guys are on the other side of the table in their own grid. And I remember just watching that being like, shit, dude, like I could use some of the stuff that they used in this show for some of my campaigns. I never got around to doing it because I have to remember to take notes when I watch stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that anime definitely. I mean, we even played in a game. Our one buddy ran a game where it was just like Sword Art Online, where you were going through the different levels. And
That's right.
He found that so interesting that he made a whole campaign around it. I mean, he didn't like literally have the characters in it, but he did that whole like level system of like going up into different levels and doing stuff like that. Like that was major. So.
Well, even that inspiration comes from old school D&D.
Exactly.
Like before role playing was a real big thing in D&D like it is nowadays, the primary focus of old school Dungeons and Dragons was the actual dungeon crawling aspect of it. You went into a place, you got gold, you got out, you leveled up, you went right back to that dungeon. And usually these dungeons, these mega dungeons would have 10, 20, 50 fucking levels underground. And they would change biomes as you went down.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a very cool concept having
definitely.
that sort of like that beehive kind of thing going on with the layers.
Yeah, definitely.
So swinging it over to Mike, what else kind of tickles your inspirational fancy?
Music a lot.
Ooh,
like I could,
that's
like,
a good one.
Yeah,
I could just listen to like just one song, and then I'm just like, as I'm listening to it, I'm like, this sounds like something that would play while someone's holding the dying body of an ally on a battlefield. And then I'm like, why are they on that battlefield? And then everything just like retroactively falls into place. And then like all of a sudden I was like, they grew up together, and like I'm just like, oh, it's going to end badly for them. I wonder if that person dies. And then like a whole soap opera gets written in my head just from listening to like one song.
That's totally fair.
I've made entire sessions based on just like one song before.
Is there any music that you can share that kind of gives that feeling of inspiration? Like what, if any bands, or is it just like soundscapes?
I primarily like, I think it's also, since I have OCD, but I like synthwave a lot.
Oh, synthwave is great.
It is great.
And synthwave,
and dungeon synth and shit like that.
Yeah, that just always gives me, I don't know, it just makes me think. And I like anything that makes me think. And in a weird, strange way, not really that weird, but soundtracks from Disney cartoons, because I really enjoy the villains in Disney movies.
Oh, okay.
And they really are villainous.
Yeah.
And they're very, what they want. Their motivations are clear. And every Disney villain is just a great role-playing big bad.
Yeah.
They have machinations behind the scenes, in front of this, and they're manipulative. They're pretty much all neutral evil. They want what they want when they want it. And it's just, people have to rise up, make allies, and bring them down in the end. It's basically every Disney movie is like a D&D session.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, music's a huge one. I like using music when I'm in the process of creating a session. Like, I know how you said you like
the synthwave?
Yeah, the synthwave. Yeah, I go the opposite way, and I listen to a lot of Hailsong. I think that's how you would say it, right? The band Hailsong.
That's Heilung.
Heilung.
Heilung. I saw them recently.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, because the people who actually went there to go see him are not people I want to be around. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, Heilung, that's German for like healing.
Yeah, Heilung. Right. Yeah. I always love putting them on because I really like this spiritual aspect of them. It's very it just puts me in that right mindset to like get into creating a medieval fantasy session. You know?
For sure. Heilung has some pretty wild tracks. Funny enough, they consider when they play live, which They only just started doing that recently, within the last couple of years, even though they've been making music for a while. They consider their performances to be rituals. To them, it's not a concert. So when I went to go see them, they had indigenous peoples from the region where I live come up on stage before the band went out and played, and the indigenous people blessed the stage and did like ritualistic stuff with like smoke and dance and song and like drums and music and stuff. Like it was like for real, like a legitimate pagan ritual. I don't want to say pagan because that's kind of somewhat derogatory, but it was definitely in that vein though.
That's so cool though.
Yeah, so How Long has some pretty wild music, and it definitely evokes sort of that feeling.
Definitely.
If you're going for that with your campaign.
Yeah, no, I love getting into them. But yeah, that's definitely the way I use music for sure.
So I want to mention a band real quick that has been a huge inspiration for my old school essentials kind of stuff, like my old school. Oh, do you?
I think so.
Tell me what it is.
I think so.
Dolly Parton?
Yeah.
Fuck, he knew. Dolly Parton. God damn
Britney
it.
Spears.
Listen, when Toxic comes on and I throw you in an acid pit.
Hit me, baby, one more time. Just hit me already.
Yeah. Crit me, baby, one more time.
Find these songs and more on the Crithalla Sings
soundtrack.
Yeah, right. The Crithalla OST. No, so there's a local. They're a combination of black metal and dungeon synth. And it's a local band near me, and the band is called Stormkeep, and I'm perfectly fine with shouting out this band because, man, this album is like the magnum opus of like everything I have ever wanted to draw inspiration from for like fantasy, like tabletop writing. So the album is called Tales of Other Time, I believe is what it's called. It's a sick album. Can I just read some lyrics real quick? Okay, so this is how, like, effectively TLDR, there was this old citadel that was ran and operated by, like, this ancient wizard, this sorcerer. And this sorcerer was challenged by legions of undead dragon knights and dragon riders.
Oh,
and
hell yeah.
Yeah, dude. And so he's on the top of this mountain during a storm with lightning, shooting lightning down from his fingertips, killing all these people, assaulting his keep. And by the end of it, there is a female sorceress who comes in who tricks everybody in the kingdom into thinking that she's a good person. And then when they kill the wizard, she usurps his throne and becomes a dark sorceress.
Badass.
That she has always been the entire time and nobody knew.
Hell yeah.
So let me just read some of this stuff. All right. Siege of the castle, king conjurer, mage slayer, usurper enthroned through malice. Clash of armies, war of wizards, teeth met talon, battles in the sky. On wind we ride, carrying frost and flame, bringers of light. Eternal majesty manifest in the wake of the welkin of chaos. Our might descends. Like,
dude, I can think of a session just right off of that.
That sounds like a session outline. Like a session outline notes. It's like malice, kings on the okay, dot, good to go.
Battle in the sky.
And so this is what happens when she finally shows up. She says, quote, now in the 9th age of Elda, asleep for a millennia, I am now awakened, a conqueror, a new era, a black dawn. I shall rule for a century. This is my domain. Like,
damn.
Oh, the music is so good. The music is so fucking good. And they have one song where there's no lyrics, there's no guitars, there's no drums. It's just all dungeon synth. You hear like a gate open up and it sounds like a sound effect from like an old Nintendo game. You hear like the clink, 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 and then the horses kind of walking. And then you hear like these synth horns playing as if, it's revelry for somebody arriving. Dude.
That's cool. Oh my God, I love that.
Top notch. Guys, if you're fans of metal, absolutely check out Stormkeep. Like, I will shout them out until the day I die because they're a huge inspiration for my campaigns.
Yeah, and I can totally get where you get that inspiration from with them. That's right up the alley. You can't get any better than that.
It's everything you want from like, high stakes wizardry fuckery.
Yeah.
Where you have these dark wizards and dark sorcerers trying to like take over I mean, for fuck's sake, it's a wizard's tower.
Yeah, right.
They're literally singing about wizard's towers.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
But music is a good one.
Yeah, music is definitely a good inspiration for sure.
When I was running my World of Darkness campaigns, I would listen to like nothing but like music from like the 40s and 50s, like old
like Fallout music,
like ballads and crooners and doo-wop and stuff like that. Because the way my mind works, with just a slight little push, all those songs can be horrifying.
Yeah.
Like if those songs are played in the right situation, they become really creepy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like playing classical music in a dark house.
Yeah.
Kind of feeling.
Or like looking at like a strange picture while Tiny Tim's in the background,
Oh my god.
Yeah. Like I've used the Beatles a lot when I used to run in like the early 2000s like horror games, because the Beatles, with like just a slight little push, a little bit of cinematic narrative, some of their songs can be terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Like their melodies and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know. Well, since I'm horror minded, anything can be horror if you like, if you just push it slightly.
No, that's true. That's definitely true.
Speaking of horror, like if we want to talk about movies for a moment, I would like to start off with because I've actually used some of this stuff in campaigns that I've written but never got a chance to play, mostly because of time issues, because of moving, because of whatever the reason. But I am a huge fan of like Clive Barker. Mm-hmm. Clive Barker was responsible for the Hellraiser films. He also did Nightbreed and the original Candyman movie. Okay, so Hellraiser, the creatures of chaos from hell that were all about, and they had like Pinhead with the pins, and he had like the box, like the puzzle box and all that shit that like hurts you the more you use it or something like that. When I tried doing horror stuff, I took elements from Clive Barker's like writings and his storytelling aspects, and I tried putting it in my campaigns. Clive Barker also makes like really good like early 2000s horror first person shooters. Believe it or not, that came out for like the original Xbox.
Speaking of movies, actually, I took a major inspiration from Marvel on one of my things. I mean, it was also sort of anime, but also sort of like Power Rangers, but mostly Marvel on this one. I'm created a where my players are going right now. They're trying to defeat a very powerful big bad who has powers from the god that they believe in. So I had to somehow try to forge something, since they're still in the lower levels. They need something that's almighty and powerful to defeat this big bad. So I came up with this sword that ties into the lore of their city, that is powered by 5 stones. I wonder if you can get where that Marvel reference comes from, the good old Infinity Gauntlet. But they need to find these 5 different stones to put into this sword to really generate its power to be able to go fight this big bad. So I actually took inspiration from Marvel for one of my major plot points for my campaign.
I've run a Mutants and Mastermind session based on Die Hard.
Really?
Oh, speaking of which, can we just have a quick moment of silence for Bruce Willis?
Yeah.
He has aphasia. He's like he's got like really bad dementia now.
Yeah.
To the point where like he has difficulty even talking and walking. And his family has him like in some special like intensive care.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it was like super quick, right?
Yeah, it kind of just like evolved so fast. Like the last time I remember seeing him was in the Gorillaz music video for Stylo. And like he seemed fine, but that was also like well over 10 years ago.
I've seen him in a lot of like direct to video sort of sci-fi movies like recently, and he was still himself, but there was something off. So maybe, you know what I mean? Like maybe it was like starting for a while. He was just able to hide it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned Die Hard, so I just had to throw that out there because Bruce Willis was like, he was like a key figure in my life growing up, man, with like Fifth Element. I mean, obviously, you know, all the Die Hard films.
I'll even go back farther. I used to watch him on Moonlighting. Does anyone know what that is?
No.
Crickets.
See? Because I'm old.
Cricket.
Sorry, bro.
I'm just going to leave that out there and I'm going to go eat my porridge. Fuck you both.
So you were saying with the campaign with Die Hard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So the group was basically in one of my cities. The city employed metahumans to be like a metahuman police task force. So they had their own division to stop, you know, supervillains. And they basically needed extra money because the game isn't always just about punching people. So they took a security job at a party in a skyscraper then got taken over by like superpowered like cultists and thieves and stuff. So it was basically Die Hard.
Oh,
that's awesome.
What was the name of the tower, dude? Now it's going to bother me so badly.
Tower Power.
No, it's a Japanese name.
Nakatomi.
Nakatomi, that's it, dude. And
I watch that movie all the time.
And then fucking, of all people, Alan Rickman, right? Played Hans Gruber, right? Was it Alan? That was Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman, yeah.
Severus fucking Snape, dude.
Yeah, dude.
If people want to watch two movies, personally for me, that are great, like good action movies and are really funny, watch Die Hard and then watch the first Beverly Hills Cop. Like, watch those two together. They're really good, and they're genuinely just solid, enjoyable, funny action movies.
Well, since we were talking about, what's his name? Alan Rickman, I thought you were going to mention, like, Galaxy Quest.
Oh, no, Galaxy Quest, it's not Die Hard, Beverly Hills. If you want to watch Galaxy, by all means, it's a great Star Trek movie.
It's got isn't, like, Sigourney Weaver in there, too?
Yeah.
Like, they got people from all, like, the good sci-fi films throughout the decade. I mean, Tim Allen is in there. But in space.
You did that
good. Yeah, movies are huge.
Movies are huge.
I mean, this is a whole nother discussion, but, like, movies are great, but the problem with movies is that it's very on rails, right? Because that's how they're designed. They're designed to tell you a story the way they want to tell you, to you know, frame it the way they want to frame it, for you to see what they want you to see. So it's very linear.
Yeah,
but there's, whereas with tabletop gaming, of course, obviously you have the freedom to interact with the world, say what you want, do what you want within reason.
Exactly.
And you're also beholden to the dice a little bit. Well, not a little bit, but a lot. So, like, if you want scenes like Die Hard, shoot for them, but understand you could fail your roll and get stuck in the vent.
Definitely.
Like,
yeah.
So
and you're never coming out.
Yeah,
you'll be
careful.
halfway
you might
through Yippee-ki-yay, and then you get, like, critted and die.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, you know, a year later, someone will revisit that, and there'll be, like, a dead mouse and a dead person in the vent to be like, oh, that's that guy who tried to stop the terrorists from a year ago.
I would love to do, like, a thing where we take a system that closely resembles the themes of whatever movie, like for Die Hard, if we did like a Cyberpunk Red game.
Oh yeah, dude.
Where we tried to recreate the events of Die Hard, but like in Cyberpunk.
And it would work so well too.
Yeah, or like Fifth Element, like if you tried to do like Fifth Element but made it, you know, Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
That would be kind of fun to like recreate stories and then just see how the dice roll, because like everybody knows how the story goes if you've seen the films, right?
Yeah.
But like if you roll poorly, it could sort of be like an extended universe, like alternate universe take on what happens. Like if you play Starfinder and you try to do Star Wars.
Yeah.
In Fifth Element alone, if Bruce Willis failed his pilot, that cab is crashing. And him and Lilu Multipass are just dead.
Yeah, exactly.
The first
They're just
5 minutes
dead.
of the film would have been awful. Or even Lilu when she was trying to escape the building after they regenerated her.
She rolls a natural 1 on her strength to break out, and she like breaks her neck against the glass, and she's dead.
Yeah, or she does a dex check to jump off the building and rolls a 1, and instead of landing in Corbin's cab, she
She gets hit by like 100 cars falling down.
it's like that movie. What was it? Meet Joe Black? Was that the movie? In the beginning, where like he turns away and waves at the chick, and he gets hit by 6 cars, and he gets juggled like a street, like Street Fighter. Oh man.
So, before we wrap up, because we're getting towards the end of the podcast here, I just want to make one final inspiration, and I feel like from me to Stavi to Mike to anyone listening could definitely take away from this. I feel like definitely, you're always, most of the time, you're probably going to be a player before you're a DM. So taking inspiration from other DMs, we say that a lot, but I really want to reiterate that. That's a major one.
Absolutely.
For me, and I think everybody here. I mean, watching other people, how they create their stories, and it's not just taking like, oh, they're running a horror type game or they're running a high fantasy type game, just how they run a game, how to keep people involved, how to keep people interested, how to make it interesting. Taking from other people on how they run is extremely inspirational. I know for me personally, I took a lot of things from what Stavi created 10 years ago when I was playing with him, to even certain things that Mike has done recently, DMing for me. I take big inspiration from the both of you guys, honestly, for a lot of things that I create.
Right on. And, I've had the privilege over, I don't know, the last couple of years, especially before I moved, to sit down during one of your sessions, a couple of your sessions, I believe. And I genuinely had a great time.
Yeah.
As a player. Maybe it was, I don't want to make it seem like it wasn't your DM skills, because that's definitely not the case. But maybe part of that was certainly the fact that I missed being a player.
No, that's totally fair.
You know what I mean? Like, especially if all you do is DM, to actually sit behind like a character sheet is like such a good goddamn feeling.
Only have to worry about your character.
Yeah.
Instead of 5 other people and like 20 NPCs.
And the world.
Yeah.
So to what Dan is saying, look, tabletop role-playing games, or tabletop role-playing in general, whether you're playing D&D, whether you're playing old school essentials, Osric, Dungeon Crawl Classics, whatever you're playing, it is a community. Mm-hmm. Like the genre in its entirety is a community, tabletop role-playing. So the only way for that community to grow and to thrive is for that community to work together, to share ideas, to share inspirations, to give pointers, to even flat out like give straight up suggestions of something that's already established. Like if you're a DM and you're like, hey, I have this idea, and you go to like Reddit or to, some forum, and you're like, hey, I have this idea. How can I make this better? For my players. People are more than willing to respond and be like, hey, I have this great idea for what you did with this. Like, maybe you should add this, and that'll be a great twist for your players. Or it'll be a really good challenge because they have to choose to either fight or do something else, or, and reach out, speak to other people in the community, go to local game stores, pull some DMs aside and just ask questions, man. Exactly. Or share notes, even share campaign notes with people.
There's nothing better than going to the community, like going on Reddit. I would have never made my Mimic haunted house without looking up on Reddit, what can a Mimic be? And I just saw a plethora of ideas of Mimics and things like that. And it just inspired me so much, where I was like, oh my God, I can make anything. So yeah, the community, 100%.
And I definitely know the Mutants and Masterminds community is great. If you just say, hey, I have an idea for a character, and you list the type of powers you want the character to have, people will just come out of nowhere. Probably me too. When I read it, and would just come out and be like, well, use this, and then this, and then this, and then this. Like, people love talking about it and creating things.
Definitely.
For sure. DMs at the end of the day like to create. That's why they're DMs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even if they're not very good at it, they still like to create.
Exactly.
They will still tell you what they did.
Yeah.
They will tell you how they made it, even if it's, a salt and pepper shaker that eats your face. They will tell you how they made it and how much damage it does.
That sounds terrifying.
I want to make a horror D&D or tabletop RPG session where everything is like a mimic, but it's like a creepypasta like version of Blue's Clues.
Yo, why did you go to Blue's Clues? Because I went to Blue's Clues when he said salt pepper shaker. That is so funny. I was gonna say Blue's Clues. Oh, dude, it's so funny.
It's almost as if I inspired them.
Oh,
Heyo!
Oh shit, he's back.
no, not again.
No. Yeah,
Before
dude.
Skeletor destroys our entire podcast, I guess we'll wrap it up here. That was a pretty good episode, guys.
Yeah, thanks again to everybody who's been watching and downloading all the episodes of the Crithalla Podcast on all the different streaming platforms that we are posted up on: Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, so on and so forth. Feel free to, leave comments, subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our podcast, wherever you may be listening, and get those downloads in. Because it definitely helps with our numbers. Fighting the almighty god of algorithms is probably the hardest D&D battle ever.
Yeah.
The algorithm has like an AC of 96, and we're rolling with D4s.
Yeah, D4s. It's not good. It's not good.
Listen, a little bit of transparency. Like, we are doing definitely better than what we expected we were going to do, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Over the course of the year that we've been doing this for.
Yeah. And it's all thanks to you guys listening for us to even consider doing this even further than we have.
Yeah.
I thought I would have been fired already, so I appreciate all the support.
Yeah, don't worry. You're still on the cusp. But anyway.
Nothing makes my creative juices flowing like threats.
Yeah, threats of unemployment.
I'm inspired. So inspiration is just like threatening your party, everybody. So
at the end of the day, take that home with you. Put that in your hat.
Yeah, put that in your DMG and read it.
But yeah, really, thank you guys so much for checking out the Crithalla Podcast. Like Stavi was saying, we have our YouTube channel. You can find us on all of your favorite podcasting apps. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook's probably your best bet. That's where we update most of the time in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely message us for sure.
Yeah, message us, and please, if you get a chance and you really do like us, even if you don't like us, please leave a review or a comment on your favorite podcasting apps, or leave a comment on YouTube, or a like, whatever it is. We would greatly appreciate it. So, that's the Crithalla Podcast. Stavi, do you got any plugs at all?
Yeah, man. So, just very recently, I don't know when this episode is going to go up, but the last Stavi Unboxes episode that should be up on our YouTube channel should be the Magpie Games' successful. And when I mean successful, I mean like over $9 million crowdfunded.
Woo!
For a tabletop role-playing game. Over $9 million. Okay,
Yeah,
that is unfucking real. That is insanely huge.
Yeah.
But Magpie Games, I've drilled it in my brain now. I will always remember.
Well, that's all I do on the podcast. Bye, everybody.
They created Avatar Legends, the role-playing game, and my partner and I backed the Flying Bison tier of the Kickstarter, and that was like the highest tier. And I did like a full unboxing of that. I just recently picked up. Thank you to Goodman Games. I just picked up a rather sweet package for Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Yeah, man.
So that is definitely something that I want to go over and sort of do like a review of. I have other things coming down the pipeline as well. There are some things that have had printing issues that I backed like last year that are going to be coming pretty soon. I have zines. I have other what's the word? Not compendiums, but like companion companion books and booklets and stuff like that help with your DM experience, including like a giant book of random tables and random generators for like entire worlds and all this other stuff that I definitely want to go over. Just to give you guys more resources to play with as you're designing, and maybe it would help even inspire you to create your own campaign if you could pick up these products, and of course support third-party publishers and developers as well.
Of course.
Aside from that, I don't really have anything else kind of coming down the pipeline except for like just a bunch of reviews for you guys to look forward to.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's on my plate at the moment.
Very nice.
Yeah, man.
Now, Mike, I think you might actually have something this time. Do you not?
Yes, I do, sir, and sir,
What?
sirs.
This is blasphemy. You're gonna ruin my joke. I always make fun of you at the end.
Wow, I'm back in school all of a sudden. But I recorded I'm calling it a creature feature, and I basically go in as depth as I can about different creatures and monsters, how I use them, what they kind of represent, really. And I did the first episode, and it's about everyone's favorite flesh eaters, zombies. And I basically, if anyone wants to hear me talk, flowery and poetically about flesh eaters for about 20 some odd minutes, give it a listen.
That genuinely sounds awesome. Look, I'm a part of the Crithalla Podcast, and I didn't even know this was happening.
I just found out about an hour ago, so...
I only just found out when I did it, so we're all in the same boat. And then I still plan on working on Yabbing with Gumbo, telling my beautiful multi-eyed box, how you doing, buddy? Some stories.
Hey, there he is. The whole episode, we almost went without a Gumbo.
I know.
He's always by my side, just gumming my leg. So, yeah, that's what I got so far. Probably more things here and there as I get more inspired.
Hey.
Quick, do the snapping finger animation.
Hey, guy.
That's pretty much it for me for now. Looking
Perfect.
forward to finishing watching the review of Magpie Games' Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it's been a long time coming for a game based on that.
Absolutely.
It really has been.
It really has been.
We got a crappy movie before we got a game.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, also, just at the very end, Conan the Barbarian.
Conan the Barbarian.
I forgot to mention Conan the Barbarian as an inspiration.
Oh,
Just
I'll add to that, any sword and sorcery movie from the 80s. Watch those.
Yeah.
No matter how bad they are, just watch them.
the episode's already over. How did you forget that?
I don't know. I was enchanted.
God.
I was enchanted by
what I was getting off on before.
Yeah. Look, I'm going on my portable hole now. You guys can figure out your way out of here. I'm leaving. All right, I'm out of here. Goodbye.
Put something on your rash, all right?
Well, thank you guys so much for checking out the Crithalla Podcast. We will see you most likely in the next episode of Talking Tabletop, which you guys can check out whenever you get a chance. But my name is Ol Skipflack, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!
Bye.
Whoa,
Oh, we hear him good in the hole. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Bye-bye!
Bye.